March 1st, everything changes in America. President Donald Trump just announced tariffs on both Canada and Mexico that will go into effect next week.
The tariffs are going forward on time, on schedule. I blame our leadership for allowing it to happen.
This is a import-heavy economy. Most of what we consume comes in from Southeast Asia and China.
Mexican and Canadian imports will face 25% tariffs, and goods from China will face a 10% tariff.
And if you think this is just political and it will not affect you, just wait, because you're about to feel it everywhere.
Walmart's imports from China rose 33% from 2023 to 2024. Columbia Sportswear imports went up 50% during the same time.
At the grocery store, at the gas pump, when you try to buy a car.
Thanks to the new tariffs introduced by Trump, the average American household could lose over $1,000 per year, according to the latest estimates from Budget Lab at Yale.
Any kind of produce coming from Mexico, and a lot of our imports come from Mexico in terms of grocery items, those would cost more money. The company that's then going to send it to a grocery store or to a car dealership. So that cost is passed on to consumers.
When you realize that owning a home is slipping further out of reach. Because when cost of importing goods goes up, so do your bills. The average American household is already struggling. People are maxing out their credit cards. Delinquency rates are skyrocketing.
Alarming new numbers that show rising default rates on credit card loans, now at the highest level since just after the 2008 financial crisis.
More young adults are failing to pay off their credit cards. New York Fed shows the delinquency rate was more than 8%.
And inflation is quietly creeping back up. And now a new tax is about to hit everything that we buy. So the real question is, how bad will it be, and what's going to happen in the short term and the long term in America? And how can you prepare right now? Before we talk about the tariffs, let's see where Americans stand right now, because things are already bad. People are borrowing money just to survive. Consumer debt just hit a record $17.57 trillion. This is the highest in U.S. history.
Total U.S. consumer debt as of Q2 2024, it had ballooned to $17.8 trillion.
Credit card debt just hit a record $1.21 trillion.
Americans' total credit card balances hit a new all-time high of over $1.2 trillion.
Meaning Americans are relying on debt just to afford the basics.
Over half of Americans don't have enough savings to cover a $1,000 emergency expense. That's serious.
Most Americans are paying only the minimum balance on their credit cards, while delinquency rates are climbing higher.
A record high number of people are only paying the minimum monthly payment on their credit card bills.
Mortgage delinquencies are rising for first-time homebuyer programs.
Housing market continues to be tough, particularly for first-time home buyers.
Today's housing market is pricey and competitive. Prices are 53% higher than they were 5 years ago. There are mortgage rates, which have more than doubled since 2022.
This isn't just a few people struggling. We're talking about millions and millions of Americans. 30% of Americans in the top 100 cities are behind on at least one bill, whether it be a credit card, an auto loan, a mortgage, a personal loan. And instead of talking about relief, we're going to be hit with new tariffs that will make everything more expensive in the short term. Now, some argue that these tariffs will bring forward short-term pain, but ultimately will bring jobs and opportunities back to America. But what about the people struggling right now? Tech giants like Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, spending over $300 billion in AI and robotics in just 2025.
Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet are now signaling as much as $320 billion in capital expenditures among them this year.
This, in large part, is to replace the human workforce. I did a video last year talking about Amazon bringing forward 750,000 robots to their workforce.
Amazon is testing a humanoid robot in its warehouses. The robot is called Digit.
This is what I believe is going to be coming to many corporations in the years to come. But the big question, what's going to happen to small business? You know, the backbone to the U.S. economy. These very businesses employ 49.5% of the entire U.S. workforce. You know, 59 million Americans. These same businesses and their employees do not have this safety net that these large corporations do. These higher costs will equate to layoffs bankruptcies and store closures, and even more pressure on struggling Americans.
37.9 million. That's the number of Americans currently living in poverty.
Before we talk about the future, we need to ask who is paying the price today. Now let's break it down. What's about to cost more, and how will it impact our lives? If you're thinking about buying a car this year, you might want to reconsider. Most auto parts in America come from either Canada or Mexico. And now with these new tariffs, the price of a new car is expected to jump between $3,000 and $7,000.
$3,000 on the cost of a new car.
But it's not just new cars. Used car prices will spike also. Because when people can't afford a new car, where do they go? They go to a used car. And they're likely going to flood the used car market, increasing demand and price. And if you're thinking, I'll just repair the car I've got, good luck. Auto parts will likely become 25% more expensive as these costs rise and they pass them on to consumers.
Price of used cars continuing to go up.
Supply chain shortages are also impacting the auto industry, forcing prices up and consumers to compromise.
So no matter what, you're going to pay more. And that's before we even talk about gas prices. The U.S. imports a massive amount of crude oil from Canada.
The future of Canada's oil industry is one of the largest crude exporters to the U.S.
With these new tariffs, gas prices could jump between 20 and 40 cents per gallon. And here's the thing, when fuel prices go up, everything else generally follows. Your Amazon orders, more expensive. Grocery store deliveries, more expensive. Even the cost of running a small business, more expensive. This isn't just about gas. It's about everything in your life becoming more expensive because of it. And if you think you can just cut back on driving to save money, what about your food bill? Since 2020, food prices have skyrocketed 23.6%.
Food prices continue to outpace inflation, increasing by 28% since 2019. Over a third said they have resorted to buying fewer items to save money.
And if you've been shocked by grocery store prices lately, just wait, because Mexico is one of the largest suppliers of produce in America.
In 2023, nearly 60% of the fresh fruit and 35% of the fresh vegetables on store shelves were imported.
With this tariff, the price of fruits and vegetables can jump between 10 and 15%. Beef prices will surge even higher as feed costs soar. Dairy products and bread also getting hit with rising shipping costs.
Grocery prices are more than 25% higher than 5 years ago. Now the threat of tariffs is adding yet another challenge.
Goods are more expensive and they will be passed along to the consumer.
We've been here before. During the last round of tariffs in 2018, the average American household paid an extra $498 per year, just from price increases alone. And this time, it will likely be even worse considering the financial position that most Americans are currently in. So that grocery bill that's already painful, it's about to hurt even more. For most Americans, the dream of home ownership is now out of reach. Right now, the median home price in America is $433,100. To afford that comfortably, you need to make $166,000 per year for the average home. The actual median household income in America, $78,538. That's less than half of what Americans need to be able to afford a basic home. And now with tariffs on building materials like steel and aluminum, the cost to build a new home, according to the National Association of Home Builders, will rise between $17,000 and $22,000. So whether you're buying or renting, housing just got more expensive. But here's the bigger question. Will these tariffs actually help American jobs, or will they destroy them? Supporters of the tariffs say that this will be a great thing for the U.S. labor market over time. But here's the problem. U.S. labor costs are between 5 and 7 times more expensive than Mexico. So businesses have two choices: pay higher wages and push those costs onto you, the consumer, or cut workforce and move heavily into automation and robotics. And guess what's already happening? Layoffs are accelerating. Factories are cutting workers. Companies are shifting to AI and robotics instead of hiring people. Canada and Mexico are not just going to sit back and take these tariffs. They're already planning to retaliate with tariffs of their own. Farmers, manufacturers, exporters who depend on selling goods to these countries are now at risk of losing billions of dollars in sales. In the last US-China trade war, American farmers lost $27 billion in exports in retaliatory tariffs. And when businesses lose sales, they cut jobs. So while tariffs are here and supposed to help American jobs, they could actually cause layoffs in industries that rely on exports. Less trade, less revenue, more job layoffs. So the real question is, are these tariffs going to be great for the US labor market? Or are they going to just make things more expensive in the short term while jobs continue to disappear? So what do you think? Will these tariffs bring forward more jobs? Will they help or hurt the US economy? And most importantly, are you ready for what comes next? Now, here's what I think happens next. In the short term, the next year, 2 years, we will see prices go up. And they're going to continue to go up. Insurance for homes, it's going to get more expensive. For multifamily property and commercial property, more expensive. Because as they're importing aluminum and steel, and they're bringing forward all these different household items, you can just imagine what this will mean for insurance premiums. This is not just going to be insurance, it's going to be every facet of the economy is going to continue to have upward pressure on pricing. So if you are an investor or you're renting or you plan to do something to escape this, you want to own property, you want to own real estate either fully paid off or very, very under leveraged, to where you have a lot of equity, you have an insurance bill you can afford, and if prices go up 10, 15, 20, 30, 40%, you can absorb it. You want to control cost. That's what I believe is very, very important next year or two. And I also believe that we're going to see these large corporations, as consumers pull back heavily on spending, have no choice but to automate. I mean, with Amazon, all these big corporations, they're going to automate as much as they can, drive these costs down more and more and more, which is going to push a lot of these small businesses out of business, and we're just going to start seeing a lot of change, a lot of structural change unfolding in the economy. Now, I'm not saying this is only just because of these tariffs. I'm saying just small business as a whole is already struggling, and consumers, they need a lot more money to be able to survive. Wages in which many small businesses can't afford to pay. And so we're already moving in the direction of automation. We're already moving in this direction. I think these tariffs just throw a little bit of gas on that fire. And so over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, we're going to continue to see more and more and more upward pressure on pricing. But then the big question becomes, well, when consumers can't afford a lot, what's this going to mean for housing? What is this going to mean for, land and assets? Well, I believe corporations, as they're bringing in billions and billions of dollars and more and newfound profit, they're going to invest in infrastructure. Entry-level housing. They're going to buy land. They're going to put that money to work. They're not just going to let the currency erode, because the government's going to continue to likely print more money, and they need to inflate the way out of this $35 trillion deficit. The job cuts they're talking about right now in the government, and ways in which they're talking about saving money, I think we're already too far gone, and I think we're just going to continue to see assets being the safer place to be the next 5 to 10 years, as they have no choice but to continue to spend and print and print and spend. So you want to own real estate. You want to have a great business that can be, inflation proof or recession proof or depression proof. You want to position yourself for uncertain times. In a best case scenario, I'm right. In a worst case scenario, you're way better off, right? What do you think about this entire situation? Where do you see all of this going? Do you think these tariffs will get passed on to consumers in the short term? Do you think this is ultimately going to bring back jobs to America, and we're going to go back to a 1970s version of America? I don't know. I don't see a day where a large corporation is going to say, I have 500 employees inside of this factory and everyone deserves $40 or $50 per hour. I don't think that's going to happen. And in most big cities, that's pretty close to what people would need to make to be able to survive and have at least a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment and make it. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're just going to continue to move more and more and more into automation. Let's have a conversation about this below. And if you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself for funding, maybe you're thinking about investing in distressed real estate, we'd love to have a conversation with you if you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative or derogatory items in your credit report. Go to greatcreditfast.com. That's greatcreditfast.com. You can click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for tomorrow. Catch you next video.